360. And then you got Hall of Fame College Football Podcast, the star of the show. Well, no, Coach is the star of the show, but Jason is here.
He's definitely the star of the show.
So yeah, the Sooner Intel is here. We're here to talk about some things that you probably already heard about, listened to, whatever the case may be. But it's not official until we all three of us get together and actually kind of chime in about it. So no further ado, guys, it's great to be back. I'm gonna try to hit this up weekly and everything because it is time for the news. As you saw earlier before we changed the like the Abby picture or whatever. We're talking, spring games being canceled, all the rest of that stuff. Got to jump in and talk about Jim Nagy. Definitely got to talk about potential departures that we see or foresee, I guess you could say, from Team 131, and then we'll talk about some recruiting stuff like that as well with Chris Mason. So that being said, guys, Jim Nagy, Brent Venables, and John Mateer all spoke today to the media. And so I know that obviously I think we kind of got more of the same from Venables. We kind of got a couple of little hot points right there, but it was great to hear him, see him. He looks to be in great spirits and he looks to be ramped up about the season. John Mateer, really liking what I'm seeing from him. He knows what's expected of him. I feel like he knows that. He knows what's going to be expected of him this year, and I think that he wants to turn it up to another level. But it seems like Jim Nagy stole the show today. So Chris Mason, Jason, whichever one of you guys want to go first, people in the chat, let's talk about it. What was your big takeaways from that Jim Nagy press conference today?
I'll just say one thing and I'll pass it to you, Chris. I think the biggest takeaway that I took from Jim Nagy was him saying that he was going to make sure, and he owed it to the players on that team to find out who they were and what they were so that we know where this team's baseline is and where it needs to go. Huge. Go ahead.
I felt like a number of big comments from him. I thought, if you haven't watched that interview, go watch that interview. That's the future of OU football right there. I loved him talking about self-scouting and advanced scouting will now be part of what OU football does. That he's going to build a staff that does that because I'm not sure how much advanced scouting we do today, how much advanced self-scouting we do. So that's going to be a key part of what they're doing. And I just loved him saying that he's not only going to be doing evaluations, he's going to be doing valuations, making sure that OU identifies the keepers on their roster and gets them paid effectively. I think he's going to take a lot off Brent's hands. That was a big part of what he was talking about today. Is that that's why he wanted to take this job. He wanted to take this job, help OU build championships, and I think we've got the right guy to help Brent move forward in whatever the new world of college football ends up being. He's slick with the media. I think he's gonna be a real asset both in marketing the program and being the voice of the program. So Brent doesn't always have to be that guy. OU, I think, should effectively use him. Get him out on the media. Get him out on a media trail as soon as he gets some staff hired and he's got some bandwidth. But I think the biggest thing I heard was, we've got a professional guy who understands exactly how to build a scouting department, evaluate what's going on. And, he's just got real expertise in this area, which I think, if you can make Brent, if Brent can focus more on the personality side of recruiting and not the dollars and cents of recruiting that NIL has turned into, you can let Brent focus on the personality, the relationships, the stuff he does best. And then you can let Brent focus on the X's and O's of coaching the football team. I think if you free up Brent's resources for that and you let Nagy says, I'm going to be the guy that's going to handle these valuations. He'll be the one talking to agents, handlers, second uncle, brother who thinks he's going to make some money off some kid. I think, Nagy's now going to be the guy that says, when they're on campus, okay, come to my office. Let's talk and be realistic about who you're second nephew twice removed really is, and he's, that's what I got from his interview. Some of the questions
the pro football model is that front office structure going to be done completely with, what professionally done as a professional team would be. And this is essentially what you are at this point, right? You're a professional program and doing things the professional way. I think that it's the best way that you could go about it. When we're worried about things that are, as a fan base and, as us as content creators, we talk about all this stuff and analyze every single little thing. What are some of the things we worry about? BB being overloaded with things that, instead of him thinking about what he needs to think about to get them playing better on the field. And I think that this is these kind of moves, these are, Bishop Frank set it up. These are chess moves. These aren't, and I think I heard George Stoia say something about that you're not going to feel his impact this year. I disagree with that. I think that you're going to end up feeling his impact on the recruiting trail immediately. I think that who he is, the connections that he has, and the respect that the man has as a, identifier of talent is immeasurable right now.
I use this example on my Patreon site, plug there, Sooners 360, that if I was using Nagy, the first thing I would do this summer is when OU's bringing in all those kids for official visits, they should have a sit down with Nagy. And Nagy should pull out a dossier on them and say, we've scouted you completely. This is where you are today. This is your strengths and weaknesses. And these are the things we're going to do to get you to the end, to get you to be an NFL prospect. And you know how I know that? Because I know NFL prospects because I've been delivering to the Senior Bowl for the last 7 years. Oh, and by the way, here are my Super Bowl rings as a scout with the Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. So if you're wondering how I know what it takes to be an NFL guy, that's it. And here's where you are today. And here's how Brent Venables and Oklahoma are going to make you a draftable product.
But that's where those are things that he definitely discussed in his interview. I'll piggyback off of what you said, Jason. I definitely disagree with what Stoya had to say, simply because the portal is where he's going to definitely be key. Don't be surprised if you see a guy from Mid-Atlantic, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Washington State, right, coming in from a Division III school and making some noise. As much crap as we love to give Gundy, Gundy has turned some D2, D3 guys that you never knew about into like some formidable, some good wide receivers, right? Some good
one damn Big 12. Don't get too crazy about Gundy here, for God's sakes.
But you can never really knock on that guy's development. And I think that's what you're looking for, right? Think of it like this in basketball terms. Yes, Kansas has a lot of success, but you've seen Kansas basketball kind of take a downturn. It's because you're starting to put a lot of athletes out there in a motion offense. For all my basketball heads out there, you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, it's all about development. It's not just about the system. It's about, can you develop these guys? Are these guys being developed at this rate? And I think this is what you're going to start seeing, is that they're identifying guys who have the NFL talent. Every year we see some defensive end or some cornerback from the Mid-Valley Conference out of nowhere pop up, and he's really good. He's a starter, or he's getting starter minutes, or he's getting a lot of reps. And that's simply because there's talent out there, and NIL is making it to where there's a lot of parity out there. But I think him and the portal, talking about, we were just like, hey, the portal is going to be crazy, because now I trust the evaluations, the evals of the guys that we have on campus now. I think we have some of the best recruiters in the nation. However, this takes it a step further. Yeah. This is a guy who can actually go and say, because I trust Beatonbow at the end of the day to know what he's going to be doing with offensive line. But a Simmons kid from Western Carolina, now you can double down on that and go further, because now you're saying, okay, Beatonbow had his eyes on him and liked this kid. Now, for the money that we're bringing him in on, Jim Nagy, right? So it's that extra validation that we need, right, for to be able to go get those kids, and you kind of trust the optics. Are they going to miss on some kids? Maybe, possibly, but I think with Jim Nagy, you're giving yourself added insurance. Now, Chris Mason, there's one point I want to piggyback off of you. You were talking about how this helps BV in a sense. I think it helps Joe C as well because now he can be
Stay
more
out.
in that
Stay out.
donor role, staying out of it. Like, hey, I'm gonna work the donors. I'm gonna work all these people for this NIL stuff. I'm gonna handle whatever's going on with the SEC, the Big Ten, all the rest of this stuff. And I think it allows him to, hey, yes, I'm the AD, I'm the face, but this is really truly the AD. This is the guy right here who's going to be making a lot of big decisions and dictating things to us as far as what needs to happen. So, maybe that could have been a bad turnip seed eventually if he would have stayed around. But bringing this guy in has been it's really exciting for the program. And it may not have a huge effect this year, but it will have some effect this year. And I think it starts in this spring portal now.
You've been beating them drums all since we got on this thing, bro.
Well, we weren't on last week. We've had a little bit of a hiatus.
I love it. He's pumped up, baby. He's pumped up.
but one thing I want to tell you is that according to my, the secret bat phone, the money guys love this hire. They were, some of the money guys haven't been so hot on Joe C, and some things have been going on. Last year obviously shook everybody quite a bit, but you went out and hired, we weren't on last week, but if we would, you'd have heard us talking about what a slam dunk this hire was, what an awesome hire this was. And let's just say the money guys at OU love this hire and feel a sense of confidence giving Nagy money to play with. At least that's what I hear from my sources. But yeah, I think, Chris, you're right. Joe Seed can now spend more time on the Olympic sports and being the traditional college administrator he's been good at. But this new future college football world is not Joe C's wheelhouse, really. Mm-hmm. So you now have Nagy reporting to Stevenson, and this takes Joe C out of this loop a little bit. He doesn't have to worry about this. He's now can focus on other things. Sadly, probably hiring a new basketball coach being one of them. So I think it makes a big difference. Nagy, now gives Brent and he understands the relationship working with coaches, right? He said that the legendary Ron Wolf, the Packers Hall of Fame GM, is he in the Hall of Fame? I think he is. Yeah. Basically giving him advice, so you just see the depth of what, Nagy's talking about. And he's like, don't force players on coaches. Work with them, be in sync with them. And, Nagy, I love the comment he said. He's like, guys, there's enough high school and portal players out there that we'll find that we love, that Brent also loves. But I do love the bit about Nagy saying that, he's going to be doing trait evaluations and scouting and all that. So I do think that we may see a little less, we'll see it in high school recruiting. We're going to see things a little fine-tuned, right? We're not always, Bill's going to get a big boost, right? Because these guys will evaluate and give him good scouting reports so he can make more offers. I think everybody on the staff will benefit from the fact that they could even say, hey, I've got these 5 new kids, high school guys are telling me to look at. Can you have your guys evaluate them? Because he did say that he's going to bring in NFL scouting evaluators. We know that. He just said it. But he's going to cross-train those guys to make sure that they can evaluate high school guys, and everybody in his scouting department, everybody will be doing portal evaluations and high school evaluations and probably internal evaluations. So you're going to have just a lot more data. My friends keep asking, is OU going to try and moneyball this thing for football? And I'm like, well, I think we have money, but we are going to be smart But yes, I do think we're going to be very smart about how we spend it. Like, you know, Nagy from his NFL influence is going to say, "Hey, maybe I don't necessarily spend this much money on a safety, but I do on a 6'2" shutdown corner. You know, I don't spend this much money on a run stuffing defensive tackle. I'm going to spend a little more on an edge pass rusher who's going to win me games in the fourth quarter." So I think we'll see all of those things come to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you start talking about where these things are at, and I think I still love the fact that they already evaluate so well. And what I think that this coaching staff is so good at is finding people that fit the culture that they want to, they want to have out there. So I think that this is really a match made in heaven, because he's going to be, more than anything, it feels to me like, because I think we've already kind of established that these guys know what they're doing on the recruiting trail, right? Yeah, I mean, they're not missing a bunch of guys that on their evals. But I think that this is more of that, it's just more expertise behind it. That this is what has he got? 5 Super Bowl rings as a scout. He's been sending guys to the draft, for the last 7 years. I mean, the top 100 guys have all been pretty much going to the draft out of the Senior Bowl for the last 5 years at least. And he had 110 of them that came to the Senior Bowl that got drafted this past year. I mean, it's going to be, I just feel like this is a really good move. And I think more than anything, those optics that are out there for the program right now under BV, that, the people that aren't watching it as close as they think they are, as they act like they are, that's where you're going to find out, hey, they're doing things the right way, and they're making the right moves in order to help BV flatten that learning curve just a little bit, right? I think that that's the main thing that we've all been asking for. So I was excited about it. But yeah, the other thing I was pretty jacked up about John Mateer too in his conversation. He's just a grown-up, man. Grown-up kid, and nothing seems to be too much for him. You know what I mean? He does not seem overwhelmed to be coming to Oklahoma. Just put it that way. So
yeah, I mean, his interview was, I mean, they did catch him saying, "Wow, there's a lot of cameras here." So there was a brief moment where he was like, "Okay, I'm in Norman, Oklahoma, home of Mayfield and Kyler." But then he was like, "All right, but no big deal. I got this. So I thought it was a good interview with him. I did think Brent did a good job with explaining Dreiling, his reason why he hired Dreiling. We got a little bit more on that, which was good. And and picking up Goodwin, I think was he explained how those guys were value adds. So I feel better about those hires after his interview today.
I'll tell you what, I had Reggie Powers Pops on the show this morning with us, and he was talking about Goodwin and how much Reggie was loving him because they're running him at Cheetah a little bit and stuff. And so he was like, "Man, I like this dude." So, he's getting reviews from the players as well, just like we've been hearing about Buckle.
Yeah. So it was Brent, again, a lot of Brent, regular Brent talk, but he did throw in some nuggets in there. But I do think, I just think Nagy is really going to help Brent, and I think Nagy is pretty confident that he can help Brent, and that's one of the reasons he took this job. Because otherwise, if I was Nagy, I maybe would have waited until next year to take this job until the Brent thing was resolved. But him jumping in like this, I think, is a huge sign that he thinks, well, I'm great at this, and Brent's good at the things that I'm not going to touch, but I'm going to help him everywhere else. How is this not going to?
He talked about what he thought about him as a coach too. That was one of the first things that he said. So I thought that was big. Have you heard if that was true about that Florida was really making a push for him as well?
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to throw money at him. OU had no one seems to know the name, but OU had a longtime NFL GM ready to go if Nagy turned the job down. But I think Nagy's a huge Bill fan. Like, he loves the offensive lineman that Bill usually sends, and I think he loves some of the defensive. He loves the defensive line. Todd Bates has previously sent him. So I think when you could tell Nagy's like, I love this, I love the guys you've been sending me to the Senior Bowl. So I think he has a level of confidence in the staff to know that, okay, if I get these guys, if I fine tune what they're doing, they're going to be very good at what they do.
To me, when you listen to Nagy, everything that he says it's almost like it's naturally in the same flow, in the same essence as what BV is saying, to be honest with you. So those are two guys that I feel like, hey, he went down there, he could go to Florida, and that could be a business decision. I'm not saying that Napier can't do the same, but I think that's a guy that probably, met with BV, and they sat down and they probably just talked about everything outside of but the job, right? They talked to probably just football the entire time. So I think it's probably just a natural connection right there. And I mean, we talked about it earlier. I think, Jason, you agree with me when I say this. I think the writing is on the wall, people. The cues, the clues, hell, the cues, the writing's on the wall for you to see. I think this is kind of a 2-year process for Venables. I think this is kind of.
I think Chris just said it. Chris Mason just said it too. I mean, he just said, look, he could have waited a year to do this. Yeah,
I mean, and land where it landed either Florida or Oklahoma, depending which one had a better year and which one was trending up, right? Because both coaches come in with slightly different momentum and slightly different things going on. I mean, you're starting to see a little bit of. I'm starting to see some of the college football guys I give a little bit more respect to starting to look at Oklahoma and be like, wait a minute, are they really bad, or did they just have a bad year last year, right? Were they bad or versus having a bad year? I'm not sure if you saw Greg McElroy's preview of Oklahoma on ESPN, his early outlook, and he's starting to warm up to the idea that OU's about to have a bounce back year. He's like, when I look at their defense, when I look at all the injuries and all the roster problems, and then I see the big upgrade at quarterback and offensive coordinator, he's like, I'm starting to wonder whether we're all ignoring OU at our peril.
And please do, because I'd rather have a pissed off OU team that's disrespected than a team that's patted on the back.
Continue sleeping, folks. Continue sleeping.
Well, yeah, but it was nice that someone who's like, wait a minute, okay, if you just and Brent was saying that today. I mean, one of the things I did think he was trying to get across is like, hey guys, our offense was shitty. If they're just a little bit better, my kick-ass defense, which I'll be play calling, will get us the wins. So, historically, he used the term historically bad, which to me is the best neutral euphemism for shitty I think a coach could come up with. We were historically bad. But yeah, I think that's what I got out of Nagy. I hope they really keep him in front of the media, because I think he's really slick with the national media because of all the promoting he's had to do for the Senior Bowl the last 7 years. I want to see him on Josh Pate, right? I want to see him, on ESPN a bunch. I want to see him with McAfee. I want to see him, everywhere that we can get him FaceTime to allow Brent to just grind a little bit, But it does look like we have two super football geeks at GM and head coach, and I don't have a problem with that. That those two guys could be in a film room together, cutting up tape and figuring out who are the 5 stars they want, who are the real 5 stars, right? Not the services that we all follow. Who are the real difference makers? Who are the Dylan Stewarts? Who are the real difference makers out there? So I was encouraged by the united front we kind of got today.
But not only that, but can we get in earlier on a kid like a Taylor Wine, who who a lot of people still believe has a lot of potential, right? A guy that you got late in that 22, 23 class, I think 23 class. And are you able to go ahead and find those guys right off the bat? You get what I'm saying? So
yeah. I mean, they just offered. I know we'll get to recruiting, but they just offered a kid from Fort Gibson last night for 2027. He's 6'7", 255 pounds, and I just watched his sophomore film, and it's like obvious why they offered him. He looks really good. He's huge. I mean, and again, I think one of the things that'll be nice is when Brent kind of shifts towards like the hard the hustle guy, right? The slightly undersized hustle guy, that maybe Nagy will pull him back to like, gotta have measurables, man. We gotta have the measurables. That the two of those will find a middle point to get us the kids like Stutzman, right? Who was somebody who was identified by the old staff. Odom picked him up out of nowhere in Florida, right? He wasn't highly recruited at all. He was playing in like a small league, and then obviously we saw Stutz at the combine. Was a fit. I mean, he's 6'3", he's nearly 6'3" and a half, 233 pounds, and he ran a 4.52. He's a physical freak, but we know he's tough. We know he can hit, and we know he can do all the other stuff. So that's the Stutzman's kind of like, that's like a guy that, when you talk about the guys that we want the stuff, we want Nagy and Brent coming together to find the Stutzmans that we want to recruit.
I agree. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and segue into our next topic, which I think is perfect. And I think it's a perfect comment to kind of send us there. I wonder if Nagy will pick up some players when the spring portal opens, linebacker, cornerback, maybe. So, with that being said, the next topic, people, we're going to kind of take kind of a slight turn from what Jimmy is saying, and we're going to talk about portal departures. And I think it's really important simply because coming off the heels of that interview today, kind of got to be a little bit jacked up because, look, the portal takes away and the portal gives, right? So, guys, what rooms are you looking at? What personnel groups are you looking at the most? Or there's just a certain handful of players that you look at the most where you're saying that's probably a scholarship, right? That's probably, he could probably be told either you're going to, become a walk-on, whatever the case may be. Obviously, think you kind of, if I'm just throwing my 2 cents in there, looking at a guy probably like Sawchuk, is he going to be the odd man out of that rotation? Is Javonte Bourne's going to put himself ahead of everybody? And obviously, I don't think you're going to get rid of Tatum. I don't think you're going to get rid of X, obviously. So who is the guy that finds himself too low on the depth chart? So just to kind of give some ideas and throw some stuff out there. So I'll pass it to you, Jason. What are your thoughts?
I think did I hear right that Sam is still in the backfield as well, or are you still in that room? I thought he was in the portal for sure.
No, I think he's still there, and Taylor Tatum's banged up, or at least that's what Eddie was saying on one of their podcasts today.
Oh wow, Eddie's giving out injury stuff. Okay,
it's baseball. He's from the baseball team. So
I love it. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. I have noticed that I hadn't seen a lot of him there. So, yeah. Listen, I think that you would probably have to expect it, right? If you don't feel like you're gonna, and if you're a guy like Javonte or Gavin and some of these guys that have been around for a little while, and you're still now you've got guys coming in and leapfrogging over you, which I think is what you had to expect to happen at some point. With some of these guys, then yeah, you probably should. And I think maybe this is one of those things where you start getting, it probably helps those conversations to be like, look, these are the guys that we've identified that are going to be, our guys that we're expecting, like NIL commission saying in here, hope we see a 1-2 running backs. Don't like seeing 6. Yeah. I don't know that they're ever going to really be at 2. I would think 3 would be, you would hope they don't get too much further than like 3 though. Right. And because I agree, I don't think you can get a rhythm that way. It's just, and not knowing what's going on. It's, if we don't know that, what do you think they're feeling like there? Right. I don't know. I think in the backfield itself. So I would guess that you're probably going to see some of that. I don't know are you hearing some of this stuff about Jaden Gibson being hurt again?
No. Yeah. So yes, he hurt his leg. He hurt his knee doing some
Same
like
here.
routes on air stuff. Brent confirmed that today, but he said he felt it was a small setback, but they got to wait for the evaluation. So it doesn't sound like it was a Kyrie Irving injury. It sounded like it was maybe something not quite as critical or long lasting. So
okay.
But I would say running back is obvious. But to me, guys, I think some cullings happen in the tight end room, don't you think? That the only guy who's really got like a development pass is Devon Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
But Caden Helms, and I think McIntyre's hurt again. He sounds like he's going to be out for spring. If Kent, is it Kent? Yes, Kent and Huggins give you the depth you need, and Devon's developing, then I think you've got and apparently Jaron is now a tight end H-back, and he's apparently hitting it and trying hard. I just don't. I think there's a couple of guys you're going to see exit there. Caden Helms and I think McIntyre. I think both of those experiments are, unless Helms comes out and does something big.
If Helms was healthy and looked the part, then maybe keep him
yeah.
around.
But I think both of those guys, that's a conversation that will happen. I think the secondary rooms are fine. I think defensive end is fine. Deep tackle is fine. Linebacker was short. So I think it's on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, I don't think, you can do anything at wide receiver. It's running back. I think one or two running backs probably make sense because we're at 6 running backs. Won't shock me if Torrey Blaylock gets some raves this spring. People looking at him saying that he looks good. So
home run hitter, man.
Home run hitter adding to the mix. So I think if you lost, I think overall two tight ends, 2 running backs probably. I could see one of the guys at defensive end moving on just because of the depth there and the level of competition there. Maybe. But I'm hearing that they're trying Nigel Smith at both spots to try and get him reps and trying to get that motion going.
Kind of have to, don't you? That guy's too good.
He's too good. You can't lose the third the fourth piece there. But does Danny Okoye make blowing up force some people to think about some stuff? But that's where I would say the potential portal stuff. I don't know about the specialists, the kickers. If somebody, if one of the guys takes over the job and one of the other guys decides to just bolt. But I think probably 4 or 5 guys based on the injuries. O-line, I don't think we'll see anybody do anything there because obviously now both Autry Dent and Akin Kimi have had things open up for them with Ozetta and Howland out. Reps for both those guys, and for Susi and Foji, or have opened up. So those guys,
competition now for them to get that spot, to get those reps.
You get those reps, and you play those guys a lot, and along with Simmons and Backlenko. So yeah, I think that's opened up to a degree. One guy on the offensive line, I have nothing about him, know nothing about him. I don't want to speak bad of anybody, but I wonder if Jake Taylor's still hurt, if he decides maybe he wants to try and play somewhere, go drop a level and get guaranteed playing time and kind of get some more, get some reps and get going a little bit.
I think that's been rumbling around over there, hadn't it?
There was some, I know Sexton's, there was rumbles that Sexton was unhappy with flip-flopping last year, and the coaches said, this year, no, it's not going to happen. We're leaving you at tackle. Go win a job, right? There's competition now. Go win a job. I'd love to see them move Jake Taylor inside at one of the guard spots and kind of force the youngsters to have to go against a somewhat grizzled veteran. But I think there's a possibility of something there. So I don't think.
I think Sexton has always looked better at guard than he ever really did at tackle.
Well, there's the Jacob Sexton who took over who replaced
Tyler Guyton.
That guy at the end of 23 looked like an SEC offensive tackle.
Sure.
Can you find that guy?
Few and far between after that, though.
Well, I'm kind of giving all the offensive line a pass on the mess that was last year.
Fair enough.
Okay,
I'll give you that.
Bill not knowing who to tell, not knowing blocking schemes and what the hell to coach to anybody until about game 8, right? Like, what am I doing? And then all of a sudden the O-line starts looking better.
Friday, they're out there bitching at each other about what the damn scheme's supposed to be.
Well, they don't know what's going on. So I'm kind of giving the running backs and the O-line, and I'm resigned to giving the offensive staff and most of the offensive skill guys and the O-line a mulligan from last year. Like, okay, it was so destructive, dysfunctional that what can we really tell from what we saw? So, but I do think we may see some guys bolt on the offensive side of the ball, tight end, running back, and maybe an offensive lineman. Defense-wise, those guys, Chavis's guys seem to love playing for him. So do Bates' guys, and I just think we'll see. I think that's what we'll see 4 or 5 guys, but I don't think it'll be a mass exodus. To your point, I'm not sure we need a whole lot added. Cornerback, I think if you could tell me that they've actually fixed Gentry Williams' shoulder, that's an interesting story, which apparently they seem to be in a good spot there. Jacoby Johnson, now that he's not been moved to wide receiver, seems to be wants to go prove he belongs to a starting spot belongs to him. I love Devin Jordan Newcomb, and I love the 3 kids that we brought in, and they're all getting, Guillory's getting most of the hype from my sources early, but I think Hawkins also looks good. So I think, I don't know. I don't see a lot of departures. I see some, but I see them more on the offensive side of the ball as things shake out and some talent is shaken and some guys who just aren't excelling or you're not going to play this year. If you want to go somewhere else, we appreciate that. And here's a lovely parting gift for you. But I think, if you ask me about the Kanik thing's interesting because the one thing I am worried the most about is linebacker depth. Because we don't have 3 freshman linebackers coming in.
Which what I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Obviously, the coach that just went to West Virginia,
Alley.
Yeah.
So Zach Alley. So people, this is one of the, I gotta put Chris Mason out there. I gotta put him on the pedestal. Look, we be in the green room leading up to each of our podcasts, before and after. Jason can attest to this. Chris Mason was saying, hey, and we were all saying, hey, man, I really like what Alley was doing. I think Alley's going to be okay. Chris Mason said, I'm not an Alley fan. His recruiting sucks. And it took a while to kind of figure out, like.
Not one fucking commit.
He kept calling me. He was like, hey, his recruiting sucks. He called it in the offseason. He was like, I don't really know what we're doing at linebacker. And so, I think this past Saturday, my uncle and I were talking. He was like, that's where you're hoping that Nagy can make a difference sooner than later, because you're like, we need to add guys to this class. And he's like, Nagy is a guy who could go out there and find us a linebacker that could come in here and maybe not totally get BV's linebacker system within the system, if you guys get what I'm saying, but he can find somebody that can go out there and do what needs to be done that is more than just a live body out there. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, hats off to Alley. I thought last year was – I thought it was good. It was good. It was not great. It was great at times, but it was good. But the recruiting aspect, like linebacker, is just very thin.
And to throw dirt on that grave, OU now has 2 5-star linebackers with the official visits this summer.
Yeah.
And he got like nobody last year. We got 2 guys. No, I'm not sure we'll sign either one of them, but 2 guys who are 5-star linebackers. Sincere Johnson, and Talanoa Ely from California. They are both absolute beasts. And Dreiling and everybody else, everybody else working on that is starting to get linebacker recruiting starting to heat up. We're starting to get some prospects in and starting to get some guys identified. So it's looking much better than it was. So I gotta hope, and I gotta hope Stutz getting drafted high will help us. Right? That finally that we'll have a linebacker drafted. I think Stutz probably earned day 2 with his work in the combine.
That 4.52, I think he did himself justice. I think he and Billy had outstanding days. I think Billy running at 4.43. I think he validated. There's going to be guys that go above him simply because of they probably had a better measurables, a little bit taller, this and that. But I think Billy is a guy who's going to be a pro for a very long time. And then you're looking at Stutzman. I think that barring little tic-tac injuries that build up over time, I think he's a guy that could be a pro for a long time. And as critical as I have been of him, I think Charles played himself into a late round pick, possibly. I think I would not touch my 40.
Whoa. What did you just say?
I believe that was K. Chris giving Downs his flowers for running a 4.7.
I said you can. I take Ethan Downs. I would not touch my 40.
I found that offensive, sir.
But I would not touch the 40. I would not touch the 50. Maybe try to improve my shuttle. Maybe try my splits, whatever the case may be, and going about my business at this OU Pro Day because I would not do anything else because I think he may have played himself. Either he's going to be drafted late or he's going to be a guy that is heavily sought after as a rookie free agent, which in my opinion is not the worst thing. I'd rather kind of take my chance and handpick the place that I go to that I feel I can really make that roster, that 53-man roster, or at least be on. Hey, we're going to keep you around the practice squad and try to get you elevated as soon as possible, something like that, where I know a team really wants me, right, but I'm picking that place. But yeah, no, that's where we're at with that. Let's keep it going, guys. Spring game. Just saw a comment up here, a pretty loaded comment. So Oklahoma ganja grower, that
guy.
To the Scoop guys earlier, and they were saying they heard the spring game was canceled more so due to injuries than due to teams poaching players. Is it just a good excuse or truth? So I've been saying this for the longest. I know I keep saying it, but I was talking to my uncle, and I kept saying it the last 3 weeks. I said, hey, if we cancel our spring game, it's not the end of the world. And you know what? We're not Texas. We're not Tennessee. Damn sure ain't Nebraska. We have a good excuse. We had injuries last year. We're trying to keep guys from being injured. But you have to realize they're still going to scrimmage, which makes the notes that you're going to get from whoever is your favorite paywall, the Oklahoma breakdown. Hopefully, we're a part of that as well, be able to give you guys some really good notes. It's going to make all these notes and these tea leaves that much more crucial to really pay attention to and figure out what is going on, who's the guy that we need to be looking out for, because, with no spring game, this whole combine thing or whatever the case may be, it's wacky. Don't get me wrong. But I think that how to say this? OU is in a weird spot, in my opinion. This is not me being a homer. I think OU is in a weird spot simply because they're following the trend a little bit. I don't believe that Venables is worried about teams poaching players. That's gonna happen. It's gonna happen regardless. Simply because scrimmages are gonna tell you what you need. Nagy coming in here, which we talked about for 30 minutes. All of this evaluation, we're talking about external. We're not even talking about internal. They film practices, people. I hope you guys know that. especially in college. They film practices and they go over this stuff with these kids. So you're telling me they're going to have Nagy and his crew are going to have all that footage at their disposal. They're going to look at that and figure out what's going on with this roster anyways and let kids know where they're at. So you're not going to be able to stop it. And that goes for every team out there in college football. You're not going to be able to stop kids from entering the portal. Either your culture is bad, something's off. You say one thing to these players and then they're gone the next day. It is what it is. It's going to happen. But OU's just in a very peculiar situation simply because injuries were at an alarming rate, happening at an alarming rate last year. And then you have people just constantly cancel. So when Texas does it, Nebraska is doing it, and then you see all these other teams doing it as well. I mean, to be honest with you, we should give credit to Lane Kiffin. He's the one that started. Look at what he did last year. So, I mean, I think the combine is kind of the right way to do it because you're still getting something out of that day, doing it like that, opposed to doing what Kiffin does is throwing, slam dunk contests and, little things like that. I think you're still getting something out of it because you're making these players compete and do football-like drills, right? But at the end of the day, I think it sucks because you don't get it. But I'll pass the mic to you guys, Chris Mason, Jason, whoever wants to go. One last thing that I would say, I don't think NIL is an issue with this at all. I think that's kind of being blown out of proportion. You're not going to be able to stop Jason calls me and says, hey, for your son, I got $1 million. And OU's only paying him, $100,000 to be on the team, and he's not getting that much time. But Jason's like, I know I can play this kid. Come on, let's go.
Well, I'm going to hit you with a David Letterman, top 4 ways to improve the Crimson Combine experience. Okay, some of these may not be legal, so just the mileage may vary, but it's a way to get revenue. Number 1 idea. I think we need to have additional Sooner schooners and have wagon races around the stadium a la Ben-Hur. I think that's really something people would get into.
Ben-Hur, bro.
Yeah, Ben-Hur. Go look it up.
I know what it is, but
number 3. I think if you want to get more money for NIL on that, I think I think having Joe John Finley wrestle a bear in the north end zone would be I think that would get a lot of people interested. I think a lot of people would be that. If you can't find a bear or PETA stops that, we could have Joe John Finley peg tied in the end zone and have people throw lawn darts at him. $1,000 to throw a lawn dart at Joe John Finley. I think a lot of fans would get into that. You get a lot of money. So I think, if you want to just
throwing strays at that poor bastard,
or at the very least, I think we could do this. Could we put Joe John Finley in a dunk tank and you get $100 a baseball?
They'd make double what they made for the regular spring game, I'm sure.
And if, or maybe you get to give $1,000 and Baker Mayfield throws 5 balls in the dunk tank for Joe John Finley. Maybe I'm going a little hard at Joe John because he is our whipping boy, but just put Joe C in the dunk tank. People would pay money to dunk him. I think you need to carnival it up a little bit, and that's other than that, I don't have anything to say about the Crimson Combine and the spring game. I mean, they're down 15 players already for spring, so that's like 70 scholarship guys, and we haven't even had a practice yet. They could be at 50, 55 guys by the time they actually play spring, trying to keep people out and keep people from getting hurt. Can you play a spring game with 55 guys on both sides? I don't think you can. So it is what it is. I think I hate it because I obviously, this being a remote Sooner fan,
I don't like it either.
The spring game is always something to look forward to. And what am I going to overreact to? And rewatching spring game highlights in the depths of June when there's no football stuff is always a nice thing. But and now we're going to watch Watt Mateer throw footballs into a trash can. It's not There's not as much
Maybe he's going to
overreach.
dunk Joe John. Maybe he'll dunk Joe John. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not as much analysis in there, but I think it's injuries. That's what it is. And OU's had a terrible injury year and is trying to. They are.
Listen,
my sources say they're really trying to load balance the veterans, and the offseason strength and conditioning. They were really trying to. They wanted to get the freshmen indoctrinated, but they were really trying to load balance the upperclassmen, work on specific things with them, but not just. They're trying not to fatigue the team. That's one last thing I think Nagy will do. If Nagy's watching practices and things are just getting out of hand, too physical, I think he has the ability to go to Brent and say, "You got to dial this back, man. We got an almost an NFL schedule if we're going to be successful. We can't keep going like this." And that's it for the Crimson losing the spring game. It sucks. On some level, I think it's chicken shit, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it sucks too. I'm not a fan of not doing it. But here's the thing, and Coach and I were talking about this on the show last night that we had. With everybody moving in that direction, and Shotty's in here talking about how they're going to do it forever at Georgia, which I know is bullshit. They're not going to do it forever at Georgia either. They're not going to do it at Florida or any of these other places that they're thumping their chest right now. As soon as something goes wrong, according to them, with the way that things have been already, and everybody's all over his neck. I mean, it would have been the same had he had decided to go ahead and do it, and you lose one of these guys to the portal. Maybe even if it was a guy that they probably pushed out like the rest of them for the last portal opening. If they lose one of these guys to that portal, and they're one of the very few teams that did it, then they would have been killing him on it. It's another bad optic thing to have happen to him in a year that he doesn't really need any more bad optics. You know what I mean? I just have a hard time going too crazy on Venables with it, because I don't think it was, number one, just a one-person decision either. You know what I mean? But to me, I think that we're seeing the end of spring games throughout the country. It's not just here. And I think that you don't want to be one of the last ones to do it. And if there's fewer games to have to worry about, then the scouts are definitely going to be at the ones that they can go and look at. And so
that was something I wanted to ask you as well. On the back end of that was, does it bother you that this is starting to happen across the nation, or are you just like, hey, adapt to it and keep moving? Like, what are your feelings on it, Jason?
I think unless they actually do get rid of the spring portal, I think it's over with pretty soon. And the way it sounds, I think they want to get rid of the spring portal, right? They want to, when it comes to the NCAA and the coaches and these presidents, I think that's what they want.
But
I don't think that they can. I don't think that they can.
They passed that rule to where it's just going to be that 1 10-day window.
They didn't pass that rule. That rule is not passed.
Well, they did change this the intercession, the December-January portal. You're right. They changed that, but they still haven't. They did. Yeah, they made a change. It's now in January. It makes more sense.
Yeah, it's like that.
They did, but they.
But they just moved it. They moved it to later in that period, but they haven't gotten rid of the spring portal.
No, they haven't got the spring one.
Okay. Right.
But I mean, I'll tell you, this is the number of spring games other than OU's and throughout college football I've ever watched. I mean, I give a shit that Florida cancels their spring game, or
I watch all of them. I watch as many as I can because I like to see as.
Okay. But, all right. Well, you're weird, so that's all right. But
I'm definitely weird.
Yeah.
Fair.
I'll watch 3 high school All-American games, but I'm not watching Nebraska's spring game. I mean, give me a break.
Hey,
Nebraska.
I watched the Missouri spring game last year. That's how psycho I am about it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, will Georgia change it? Yes. Will everybody change it? The thing that I'd love to see happen would be, could OU just do a scrimmage with Tulsa instead? Something like that, right? 60-play scrimmage with Tulsa instead. Bring the Golden Hurricane down, pay for them to come down, and hit somebody else, right? And you have the full roster of players that you've got and just do a scrimmage. And I think that'd be better. It'd be a better experience. You could sell better tickets for it. It would be great. But they just don't. The NCAA needs to change that rule and allow scrimmages between teams.
That is, hey, look, that's all fine and dandy. I don't think that these teams are going to want to do that. Is highly, and I'm a very idealistic person. To me, let me say this. I'll meet you in the middle, okay? We're not going to bring another team down. Why don't we do what is trendy right now? Why don't we just do some 7-on-7 at the very least? Put them in shorts. That'll be fine. Do some little 7-on-7 drills, something like that. That's very light.
That's maybe what we're getting. We don't know what we're getting yet. We don't know what we're getting yet.
I mean, we don't know what we're getting, but I'm just saying. I mean, I think to me that would be the natural thing. Do a little 7-on-7 just to show, just kind of and actually work on some stuff. Have a live. You can have the combine stuff. You can have some of the fun coach versus the player type stuff, and then have all the legends and former.
That might work for a year though. I think that's the kind of thing that I don't think that anybody's going to stay excited about that. Maybe the kids and stuff. I guess it's good for if you can get them closer to the players. And a lot of times, I think a lot of people that have made the comment about it's accessible for families where a lot of games won't be.
That's right. There's a way to make it work and move forward. I'm not sure the marketing geniuses at OU. I trust them to do that. So we'll see. I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is. So again, like I said, Joe John Finley wrestling a bear 15 minutes in the north end zone. It sells tickets, man. It sells tickets. It's illegal. It's illegal. I mean, we're breaking multiple federal laws here, but who cares?
So somebody said have Joe John wrestle EPL in the But hey, look, guys, let's keep on moving to our last topic here. Chris Mason recruiting. It seems like there's been some names that have definitely popped up, and contrary to the belief, a lot of these high school kids are still really interested to see what OU has going on. So, Chris Mason, the floor is yours. Could you kind of just enlighten us about what you know, what you've heard?
All right, so I'm going to give you 10 names that should be on campus this weekend. Okay. The first one is Peyton Houston, the quarterback for 2027 from Evangel Christian. He's top 15 according to Rivals for 2027. He looks like he might be the number 2 quarterback in the country. Brandon Arrington from California should be on campus. He's a 5-star athlete. Probably quarterback for OU, 6'2", 180, runs like a 10-3, legit, 4.3 speed. Everybody in the country wants him. We could use a big cornerback with elite speed, as everybody could. Then Jordan Edmonds, another big elite cornerback, 5-star from Georgia, from Sprayberry, which is north of Atlanta, where Trey Sermon was from. Then we have Brian. Kill this. Sorry. Getting back to my list here. I don't have all these names memorized, just most of them. Then we have Brian Swanson, an offensive tackle from South Oak Cliff, 2027. He's going to be the top offensive tackle in Texas next year. He's back on campus again. He'll be a borderline 5-star. Then we have KJ Green, who should be on campus, I think, defensive end from the Atlanta area, from Stone Mountain area. He's top 20 on 2 services in the country. Then we have Anna Fa'alave Johnson, an athlete from California, to 2027. He's ranked as the number 1 athlete, number 25 player in the nation. We have Damian Winfield from Texas. He's number 75 in the country for 2026. This is his first trip to Norman, fighting Texas for him, really. Then we've got Antonio Ellis, who's ranked in the top 50 as a wide receiver for 2027. Then we have Asher Giotto from Jacksonville, who is a 2028 defensive end. He's only offered one other defensive lineman for 2028. That means he's a high school freshman. And that was the Marcus Fa'akatu from California, who blew up the camp last summer. I've watched Kyoto on film, and there's absolutely no way that guy is a 2028 player. I mean, he's just abusing people. He's 6'5", 240 already. And like I said, he's a high school freshman. He's going to be a 5-star top 10 player in the nation. Then we've got Drew Evers for 2026 is going to be on campus. He's in the top 200, but I think he's probably projects higher. And if OU can get back in the mix here, it makes O-line recruiting very interesting because he's an offensive tackle, offensive guard, has potential at both positions. Could be a right tackle, meaning if OU could just find a left tackle, they'd have the players they need in this class on the offensive line because I think they have enough interior prospects that they're going to land some kids. The Will Conroy's already verbaled. Noah Best is probably going to be a Sooner, so you really only need one more guy if you have room. So that's 10 guys. There are probably 30 guys coming on campus between the classes. Lots of good players. Obviously, Bo Bentley will also be on campus as well as OU continues to play Russian roulette with their 2026 QB situation. Yes, Chris.
I want to stop you and ask you about that right there, okay? So, it was brought to my attention, and trust me, I have not paid that much attention. Been on somewhat of a detox from last year, but now I'm back. I'm back in the fold. But all I have to say is this right here, Chris Mason. We sat here on screen, off screen. We talk about Jaden O'Neal, about the ties to OU, what he wants to do. He's locked in. All the rest of this, it doesn't matter if what OC is here. He could play in that, and he said that he could play whatever, do whatever, right? So he slipped a little bit in the rankings.
Yeah, have you seen Bo Bentley? Oof.
And well, he slipped on 3. On 3, decided to drop him.
Okay. But I'll say this right here. Now it seems like people are starting to fall in love with Bo Bentley for the same reasons. Now, Bo Bentley is see. This is where I throw caution to the wind because Bo Bentley, I believe, is a converted wide receiver, right? So when I think of him, I think about that Texas A&M quarterback that got drafted by Tennessee and played for them for like forever and did nothing, right?
Yeah, my mind is so full of Texas A&M quarterbacks that suck that I can't quite pull a name.
I'm thinking of what's that dude's name that was in that movie that Kevin Costner was the GM for the Browns and shit? Bo, what's his name? That's the name that keeps popping in my head. Do you love football, Bo? Do you love football, really?
Well, I've heard that none of Bo Bentley's teammates went to his birthday party.
That's what I heard too. So I'm wondering about it.
So
we do the draft. Really good, man. His film looks really good.
His film is really good. Mm-hmm. O'Neal. Okay, so one of the Rivals analysts went onto their Rivals board, and somebody sent me the clippings of why he said he dropped Jaden O'Neal. Okay. I don't really agree with why he dropped him. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the reason they have Tannehill, Jimmy Satterfield. Again, mediocre.
Man, a cigar.
Pulling that out of the pantheon of mediocre A&M quarterbacks. That's really good.
and he's probably the best of them too.
Yeah, other than Kyler Murray's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going back to the 80s. So here's my problem with the quarterback situation. I'm fine with them evaluating Bentley, bringing him in, seeing what's going on, and evaluating him against O'Neal. But just don't, pardon my French, fuck this up that you lose both. At this point, if you want one and you choose one, just do it. Pull the trigger now and pull the plug because you're not getting both. You're not getting both. That's not happening.
Is this a Arbuckle likes one versus the other thing? Is that
no? I spoke to Jaden O'Neal. He loves Arbuckle. Arbuckle was showing him how he was going to use him. O'Neal was just at the LA Rivals thing, talking up Arbuckle, how much he loves him, how much he loves Brent. He loves the stability at OU. He loves the program. And his best buddy, Daniel Odom, was the best wide receiver at the LA event. And he's jumped up about 100 spots on Rivals and looks like he's going to be a top 100 wide receiver. So I'm going to try and be as agnostic as possible. Ignore the fact that I've only talked to one of them. I've only had an interview with one of them. I spoke to Jaden, great kid.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I don't think you
was
can go wrong
very
with Jaden
was
either.
was very generous with his time to me. I just want OU to pick one so they don't fuck up and lose both.
So and brings me to a point. You see this? I'm gonna go ahead and let everybody know what you were talking about. And he said to me, he said, "Man, look, because we kind of had a little bit of war words over because I said, hey, look, I'm not, and now that you tell me it's on 3, I don't care about that clipping. But this is what I'm saying, and I alluded to it earlier in my statement, which was it seems like everybody's falling in love with Bo Bentley for the same reasons they were falling in love with this kid, except for he throws all platform. And again, that goes to him being raw at that position, right? So my uncle's like, hey, look, he was like, you got to think about it, especially with he's like, Nagy is the writing on the wall for that. I don't necessarily know if you're going to take 2 big time quarterbacks like that in the class simply because NIL. He was like, you don't want to tie, if you have 20 million, you don't want to tie 6 million to just 2 quarterbacks. You want to go out there and get the best bang for your buck. So I just think it's really interesting, kind of like with that dynamic. But my 2 cents in that barrel is this right here. I do believe Jet knew after Michael Hawkins, of course. I think Jet knew could be a problem for some people simply because I think that we've thrown the name out there a couple of times on a couple of guys.
Dude, Jet has a nice ball, dude. I like him too.
He's it's Bradford-like, where it's just like he's on a roster. Nobody's really thinking that much of him. But man, when you watch the guy play, I think he's a willing rusher, but he's trying to get the ball down the field with his arm, and he's accurate as hell. And
good player, man.
Good ball. So he could potentially be a problem for some guys because if Mateer balls out this year, let's say that we win 8 games, 9 games, everybody's looking at us like, hey, you guys could potentially go somewhere and do some things right next year. And let's say Mateer comes back or he doesn't come back. Regardless of what happens, that quarterback room is going to be loaded with talent and competition. Obviously, you think Hawkins is going to be the incumbent for that position, but when you look down the list, like I said, it's some problems in there for everybody, causes a problem for everybody in that room. And that's great for us because we get to talk about it. And as fans, we get to enjoy true, everybody say it, competitive depth. But it just was really interesting that he not only Arbuckle offered that kid has kept Jaden O'Neal intact. Jaden O'Neal's some California people, and I see him. He's at more games than I am. I saw him at OU Texas. I walked right past him. So I just think it's an interesting dynamic and an interesting story that is not – I mean, obviously the Nagy thing, everybody wants to win, 12 games and go undefeated and win a national championship. But that is something that I think people need to pay attention to in the recruiting. What are we going to do at quarterback in this next class? Because it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I don't. At some point, I like Bentley's film. I like O'Neal. I mean, O'Neal's potential is like sky high. I can see Nagy saying, "Guys, watch him throw the freaking football. You can't coach this guy up." You can't coach this guy up. I can see Nagy saying that because obviously, from a measurable standpoint, O'Neal is like he's everything you want. Bentley, his film's really good. He took the whole Texas championship thing. I worry a little bit, like I started to hear about Bentley, like we heard about Arnold the year before. So I'm worried a little bit about that, just a touch, because Arnold had the same thing. But yeah, you're not going to get both. You can't support it from an NIL perspective. Someone else is going to come in. I mean, Bentley has too many big time offers, and so does O'Neal. You can't keep both of them. Just by April 1st, stop this nonsense. Pick a horse. Run with it. Don't lose both by farting around into the summer. That's my point of caution there. So I Again, if you got Bentley, that would be fine. I mean, the composite, they're basically right next to each other. And I'll be on three, basically. The on three guy said, according to what I was sent, that Jaden O'Neal struggled the first day of a 7-on-7 tournament in Miami. Then the second day, he dominated. But they were worried that the first day was how he would really perform. So that's basically why they dropped him. They said they looked at some of his high school film. It didn't quite add up. The explanation didn't quite add up to what happened to his junior year or how they evaluated him before, but whatever. It's on three. They make all kinds of weird evaluations, dropping and raising people. These are the same guys that dropped Jeremiah Smith to number 75 in the country at one point. So that's all I have to say. And they're convinced David Stone, and they dropped David Stone like 14 spots because he wasn't 6'6". So I mean, these are the guys. They don't have a lot of gravitas behind their evaluations. They don't have a lot of process or rigor behind what they do. None of the services do. That's what I always complain about them. But yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting story. Bo Bentley's going to come to Norman. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh, Bo Bentley looks really good." Jaden will come back for the Crimson Combine probably, and dunk Josie and Brent in the dunk tank. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. What I do love is that Arbuckle appears to be able to identify quarterbacks, get quarterbacks' attention, which means that quarterback recruiting looks like it's going to be in good shape. If we get one of Bentley,
never mind what Barrett Salee had to say.
Exactly. So if we get Bentley, great. If we get O'Neal, I think that will be great too. So I have decided to be agnostic on this, even though I have talked to one kid, not the other kid. So I naturally have a bias. I'm just just exposing that out there. But I think if you get either one, it'll work. But do it soon so the quarterback can help close out your class.
I would agree with that part. I think you need to make a choice on that. And I have a hard time understanding why, after all this time, when O'Neal has been so stuck to the,
Brent rewards loyalty, right? Brent rewards loyalty. Loyal
too. I mean, isn't he moving to Oklahoma? Isn't he going to play here?
I think where he plays depends upon sorting this quarterback situation thing out.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like, to me, I don't understand why you had to do it. I don't understand why. And Bentley, is he that much better? I mean, can he be? I don't know, man. I like the film that I'm seeing from Bo Bentley, and I was watching it on who's that guy that does the film study, all that stuff? He's a Georgia guy. I like him. I like the show. I like that show a lot. But I like his film is really good. But so is O'Neal's. And I think that they both are going to have to develop once they get here either way. So it's not like it matters. So don't screw it up and like screw up the rest of it.
Yeah, don't like end up with Bentley going to Ohio State and O'Neal says, "Well, fuck you, I'm going to Georgia now." And then we're like, who are we getting next? That's the concern I have, is that there's a big time shark circling both of them. You could easily lose both. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know Bentley, everyone says, well, he's got OU family and all that, but you string this out too long, he falls in love with somebody. I mean, Peyton Pierce fell in love with the Ohio State linebacker coach, right? And he was a Sooner, and everyone thought we were getting him. He's got his grandfather went to OU and all that. So it doesn't take much to like lose kids and have them go elsewhere.
How just a quick answer from both of you guys. Jason, we'll go with you first. How long does it take you to pull the plug, basically, to like end it with one? Well, let me like this. How long does it take you to figure out which one of those quarterbacks you want, so you can go ahead and get there? You already have one commitment. You already have
the next big party's Champ U, isn't it?
Huh?
Champ U is the next thing coming.
Yeah, Champ U, because I'm just trying to get
Future Freaks this weekend.
Future Freaks is this weekend. But what's the last big one of the summer? It's Champ U, right?
Yeah, you can't wait that long.
No,
you don't think you wait that long?
Here's my thing. Hear me. Let me finish this.
Okay.
The time that I'm trying to get out is simply this right here. How long do you wait as far as August and September for them to go ahead and, you know, lock it down, shut it down, all the rest of that stuff to where you're just hung on that one guy, or are you talking to both of them the entire time?
No, I lock it down. I lock it down early too. I don't know that I'd block it down as necessarily as fast as Chris is talking about, but I don't want you screwing it up either. So I don't think that you can risk pissing either one of them off or getting them looking because they're not sure how you feel. So all of a sudden somebody else kind of pops into the picture, which apparently George is in the picture now with Bentley anyway. And so maybe that's and
Ohio State.
So to me, I don't know that it's worth the risk of pissing off Jaden O'Neal at this point or getting him looking elsewhere or, God forbid he ends up staying and going to USC. Fuck that.
Although USC stole Oregon's quarterback because Oregon thinks they're stealing UGA's former verbal Jared Curtis and the
all that stuff.
So the big thing, guys, neither kid is playing significant football right now. There's no new film, right? So if you get Bentley on campus and you get him you see him throw in person.
Are they both going to Elite 11?
Yeah, they will. But are you going to
That's late. That's late. But I'm just saying.
Well, they both will.
It's really the next time you're going to see anything serious out of them, right?
Yeah, but that's the summer, right? I think you have to make the decision earlier than that because you need, you need the wide receivers and everybody else knowing who the guy is. You're making runs at people.
You've already done that too with O'Neal. So I don't understand the infatuation here. I don't see that much of a difference that we should be still here.
I don't either. It doesn't to me. I like Bo Bentley's film's fine. It's good. I just don't see anything that says.
What about what Shawty's saying though here too? I mean, I guess there is an argument for it, at least talking to them both until the ink's on the paperwork. I understand what you're talking about, but with quarterbacks, you got to you got to get them in your boat and keep them there.
Yeah. When was the last? I mean, okay, sure. We lost Sperry in December, right? But did we really lose him? Was it Kevin?
He was lost with Jaden O'Neal.
I mean, exactly, Kevin Sperry. But generally speaking, guys, big-time quarterbacks who commit and are a part of their process don't bolt on their teams at the last minute. Now, obviously, Auburn, flashed a massive check in front of that kid who dumped Notre Dame last year. But that's the exception, not the rule.
Deuce Knight, yeah,
that's the exception, not the rule. So, and if O'Neal bails on OU and like hardcore stiffs us, then you can try and flip Bentley from wherever else he's trying to go.
Sure.
But does it work the other way around though? I don't know that. I don't know that. I think if you stiff O'Neal now, you're not
play better offense this year too, Chris Mason. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, if
we're putting the cart before the horse here, but
that's multiple carts. I mean, if we play shitty offense again, Brent's fired, so no one's making the decision because the next coach is going to be the guy deciding. So, yeah, I mean that lots of dominoes start falling the wrong way if we have a 6-6 season. Yeah, I mean, so we'll see what happens, but I'll think positively right now. It's the season of optimism. It's spring, season of optimism. But yeah, I just don't think you can. I just don't think you can. You need to decide earlier. You can't. Official visits for OU look like they're going to congregate them around 3 weekends, starting June 6th. By June 6th, you've got to have the guy buttoned down.
And you know what's crazy? Nagy could be an essential piece to this. To be honest with you,
he could.
Well, if Arbuckle says I can't break the tie, gives the film to Nagy, Nagy comes back and says, I'd go with this guy. And if that's the case, I got no problem with that. We got a new process, new evaluator, new eyes on it. So if Nagy says, hey, dude, I looked at your two quarterbacks. I know you're struggling with them. I'd go with this guy. I think Brent and Arbuckle would be inclined to say, okay, all right, we're having a hard time breaking the tie. You broke it, so we'll go with who you say. And just measurables and arm-wise, I would think Nagy would go O'Neal. But film, he's a film guy, so the film may tell him something else.
He flicks that ball and gets it out fast, man. I like his release.
He's 6'3", 215,
really
big frame. We'll handle an SEC season because he's 6'3", 215 right now, right? And the kid's super lean. He'll be 6'3", 230 by the time, so that's a quarterback that can last in the SEC season. Now Bentley, Bentley's got that, he's got that little bit of Baker. That's why people have sort of fallen in love with him. Sort of that Centex.
I'm tired of that little comparison.
I do. It's bad.
But this Baker Mayfield comparison.
Well, but I mean, he's got Bo Bentley. He's got like a Baker Mayfield name. He's from I don't know where Selena is. Is it in Centex too?
Pretty close to it, yeah.
Yep. So you've got all the people saying, "Hey, we need another Centex gunslinging kind of quarterback like Mateer, like Baker, and Bentley fits that mold." Okay, all right. Okay. We've also have had, we also did but everyone's like, oh, you won a state championship. Well, Arnold went to the state championship final and he flamed out on us. So what does that say? I don't know that it's the definitive, this guy's going to be a superstar, quality everyone always says.
I don't know what they're going to be till they get here either way, but I think you're right. I think he's been recruiting well. Ganja was talking about it in here. Super loyal, recruiting for OU heavily. Man, yeah, I think that. Yeah, there's Norman. But yeah, I think that you probably could lose more with it. So I don't think that even if you think he's better, is he that much better that you're going to screw up whatever it is that you have going on here?
And if I had to bet, both of them are going to go to Elite 11, blow it up and win their regionals. Yeah. And then we won't know until they get to Elite 11 to compete against everybody else. And that's late. Right. I mean, they usually
want to have it wrapped up by like May if you're a quarterback, don't you?
I prefer to have it wrapped up by spring. I mean, Arnold verbaled in January. Sperry verbaled like 2 years ahead of time. Hawkins verbaled at the spring game, and I'm not really sure. I'm not sure any data beyond that's really. I mean, Caleb Williams verbaled July 4th, I think.
Yeah, but wasn't that because Lincoln was telling him no, and he was going to go.
Well, that was COVID too, so it's all messed up. But generally speaking, around spring would be the latest I want to lock up my QB for that year. Like I said, you drop Sperry. That was an anomaly. I think that's an anomaly. So
yeah, I don't think anybody cared. I don't think anybody cared.
Well, his senior year was so average, and he
was definitely playing up in competition, and he wasn't playing as well as he had played.
Yeah, he put a couple of good games together, but overall he was playing pretty badly. So, I mean, pretty average. So, I don't anticipate seeing him starring in the playoffs at FSU anytime soon. So,
no,
hell no, not with Gus Malzahn over there running that. People, look, we've been in here for an hour and 24 minutes. The crew is back together. Run those likes up on every channel. Subscribe. We got Chris Mason with the Patreon. All of that. We got Jason every morning. You can see Jason on. Jason has a website and all the rest of that stuff as well. So people, there is all this content that you can get. Because trust me, I already know we're going to talk more about this, and I'm excited to talk about this Jaden O'Neal, Bo Bentley thing further. With whatever happens, whichever way it goes, I think it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be a lot more. It's a lot more that plays into it with the new OC. How does that dynamic work? Now you got the backing of Nagy and his scout work to kind of get in that. So it's going to be interesting to see when those tea leaves do hit, what was ultimately the decision, or what were the couple of factors that led to the final decision. So be excited for that. But again, look, Horns Down Podcast with me.
Hey, OU Hoops won a game.
That probably got him in the tournament right there.
Yeah. Sooners. Yeah, that's a good win. Sooners 360. Chris Mason, Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with Jason and the coach. Guys, we are back. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a show next week. Leave some good comments. Again, run those likes up on both channels. Give us the views. Run those numbers up. Help us out, people. Appreciate you guys for watching tonight. We're out.